Hello, Froggy here, and today we'll be exploring somewhere I've been meaning to for a while. The first contact mission in Lightfall, which is, believe it or not, the first mission. It's the only one that doesn't take place around Neomuna, and, not being a patrol space, it was last on my list to explore. There is some cool stuff to see, though. I had been wanting to get an up-close look at Callus's flagship during the flyby. Didn't quite manage that, but we got fairly close. Avvy wanted to show me a hole near the beginning, and took that opportunity to see how much we could do in this mission. So, we're coming up to the first hole here. It's pretty handy. It lets you explore the entirety of the outside of the inside of the ship. I'll give you a moment to see if you can spot where we're going next. Can you spot the hole? That's right. It's this seemingly solid wall. Turns out it's intangible. From here you can just climb up a hole in the roof. If you try to go underneath, there's a lot of death barriers, so you probably won't get very far. And now that we're out, it's time to look for everyone's favorite thing. Chess pieces! We've got them in this level just like in pretty much every new zone since... what is it, Beyond Light? Just taking a brief look over by where the mission started. Never know if they're going to place something interesting at the beginning, but doesn't look like we've got much here. There is a whole lot that would be nice to see out of box here. See all those ships kind of blinking in the distance. And a fair number of closer ones. We'll see about those later. One of my favorite things about exploring the outside of the maps is that you can kind of get a sense of how the maps are pieced together. It also makes it sometimes easier to spot geometry that you may recognize from other areas. This mission seems to have a lot in common with Proving Grounds. Plus, naturally, any other time that we've gone on to Cabal ships of a similar scale. There's a lot of the kind of vertical cylinder things, which I kind of associate with Proving Grounds. And also this top-it here, though that may be something that we kind of see in airfields as well, out in Echelon Control. Speaking of which, the cockpit area here is pretty much the same in all of those areas, so it's a little bit different with that thing in the top. Might have a bit more in common with the version of it that appeared in that exotic mission. Anyways, let's see about heading back. Might be some interesting things. Like, I wonder if we can get into... yeah, we can. It's just open. Wonder if this is the same as the room that's floating out of map in Halpha Selectus for Proving Grounds. It is nice how, at least I didn't recognize a lot of the kind of reused rooms when I was running through the mission. Getting back into the map can be a little bit tricky. I always get turned around. You can see kind of the bottom of the grate that we went through, but we need to get a little bit higher, maybe? No chess pieces here, so I definitely am not quite in the right spot. I'll use a grapple. So, earlier when I was exploring around here, I did run into one weird thing by the beginning. Turns out if you go up to these doors here, you get an E-prompt. You can't do anything with it, but thought that was weird. Might be related to how you can open some of those doors with key cards. Hole should be somewhere around here. Probably wouldn't take too long to start from the beginning, but might as well save a little bit of time. Hopefully. Oh, there we go. Right in this corner. And once again, we just walk straight through the wall and we can get on our way. We've already seen pretty much all there is to the outside of the first zone, so let's skip ahead to the second. This area was mostly taken from the Alpha Selectus, including all the holes and unfortunately some of the patches to those holes. But we can get around that by just jumping up into this corner. There is a hole right here. Unfortunately, it's perhaps the most annoying hole I've dealt with. You can just drop right through it, except when you can't. And sometimes it takes quite a few tries. I found that lining your cursor up somewhat like this makes it eventually work, though I wasn't able to get it too consistent. When you do get through, it seems like the easiest thing in the world, so I don't know, let me know if you figure out a better way there. So, from here we can see the entirety of the outside of the inside of the second ship. Some nice depth textures up there. You can come here after you finish the engine destruction, but at that point the lights will all be blinking and it'll be very dark, so I'm just dealing with the darkness zone here to give you a better view. Gotta be careful around here to not hit the death barriers. If you kind of sneak around the edge, you can get around to the other side and continue forwards. Right side might have more room. It would be kind of neat to see if you could hit a transition to the first Neo Muna area here, although I doubt that would exist. But they have had weird loot zones before with things like Shattered Throne, so who knows, maybe it exists. See all the narrow corridors and whatnot that you would go through on the way to the escape pods. Don't know if there are any holes to get in sequence break, though you certainly wouldn't be able to activate it. And sadly doesn't look like we'll be skipping ahead here to the outside. It's kind of close. Oh, nope. Alas. But what if you want to go outside the outside? The darkness zone starts as soon as you open the door. But the joining allies doesn't start until you blow up the first radiator. That means we can in fact get out of the map during this section. The joining allies goes away when you blow up the second radiator, which also triggers the next objective in the Autorez. that means that we just might be able to hit an IRB. You will, of course, need 2 allies for this. Here I've got Avvy and Adisypher helping out. You'll need 1 person for each radiator room. They need to blow up at the same time, so bring a weapon that can do that.
Let's take out the engine.
The person hitting the IRB will need to head out of map while the other 2 get the radiators prepped. This hole again. Well, with a quick fade, you'll never know how long that took me. We need to set a death point for the IRB out here. Unfortunately, there is a rather long respawn timer here. So, you'll just have to wait it out. With that out of the way, we just need to die to the load zone. We'll be breaking the box in the first area of this mission. I'll leave the second one as an exercise to the viewer, although a similar method should work, presuming that you can find an appropriate piece of ground to set your res on out of box. Unfortunately, much like the hole to get out of the map, we weren't able to find a super consistent way to die to this load. The best we could come up with was just slowly approaching the load zone. If your ghost shows up where you expect, it's time to trigger the Autorez. Text chat works pretty well for synchronizing. If you see joining allies, hopefully you'll get the Autorez before it finishes.
Okay, we've blown up the engines. Ship's losing altitude.
You're now free to explore out of box. You might have this happen. If the screen goes black like that, it's possible that the timing wasn't tight enough.
Okay.
Or maybe you just got unlucky. It happened to us twice before we got it. Once you've made it out, you can start taking a look at the different things you see in the distance. You can actually make it to that over there. The rocks you see floating around are solid. But before we go too far, we should get our allies out with us. They'll need to follow the same path that we did. Except we'll be getting the res instead of the Autorez. You can see Adisypher is about to hit the load over there.
Guardian down.
If they fail to die the load, they can also leave and rejoin. Just make sure to promote whoever's still in the second load zone, because otherwise they'll join in the wrong place. Once 2 people have made it, the final person has only 1 attempt. But luckily it worked out this time. And now it's time for exploration. I've got my navigator with me, although it isn't strictly speaking necessary. If you're using power weapons to destroy the radiators, then you're probably going to need to do some sword ammo generation first, and you'll probably be doing it here and there anyways. You want to have your max reserves low when you're alive, and then raise them up when you're dead. I would recommend regenning anytime you get to about 30, otherwise it'll take quite a while. We're going to be heading over to the other side. That means going a little bit far out so that we avoid the box pull and some weird death barriers. You can land on pretty much any of these small rocks you see around and use them to help gain some height.
Guardian down.
Grapples are quite handy for that. Previously in my grapple flying video, I was firing before doing the special reload, but turns out that's entirely unnecessary.
Guardian down.
Of course, you could have done that with a regular grapple too. But might as well not have the grenade cooldown going if we don't have to. You can take advantage of the rock clusters to gain height. Currently, I'm just taking the scenic route around to the back of the ship that we started on. Could go there directly, but we're here to enjoy the views. If you've got Navigator, you can use that to gain a, well, I suppose unlimited height. And that definitely makes getting to the higher asteroids a little bit easier. Unfortunately, all the ships that I've tried reaching other than the two in the main area are outside of the true edge, although not by very much. Climbing up these can be a bit annoying, especially since you don't have the ability to mantle. It's almost as though Bungie didn't expect us to be running around on these rocks. Oh, hello Avvy. Just taking a moment to enjoy the view of this side of the ships. Let's give it the old flyby. It is kind of surprising how much solid stuff is out here. Definitely makes it handy for regenerating sword ammo. Once again, definitely want to do that somewhat often, which is why you're hearing so much of that Guardian down. The lower your ammo gets, the longer it'll take to regen. These little ships, sadly, are not solid. You'll just pass right through. But even the tiny asteroids are. This is one of my favorites, this little egg guy. Anyways, let's keep going. While there is quite a variety of rocks, you'll find that they do repeat if you look closely. Definitely not enough to bother you while playing the regular mission. Not too much going on here, except a bit of rock climbing, so let's skip to a nice view. I've made it up to a rock overlooking the second ship's engines. It turns out that they're possibly the loudest thing I've heard in the game, so bit of a warning for you headphone users. You can hear it starting to kick in now. The loudest sound is probably directly above them, which I didn't quite hit. So this is not their full volume. Adisypher has a video that shows what that's like. I could keep giving you some narration over this, but I don't think you're going to hear it. In fact, I could probably reveal all the deep, dark secrets of glitching right now, and no one would ever know. If I keep talking about it, I imagine some people are going to think that they're messing around with something, but I'm sure you will not. I'm really pretty impressed with the knowledge of everything. And that's how you can get to galaxy pools easily. Before I wrap this up, I did mention that white structure out there is reachable. So let's go head over in that direction and Perhaps see if we can reach that ship off to the left after. I was honestly fairly surprised that this white blocky thing over here was reachable at all. A little bit less surprised to find that it isn't solid. I guess it was too much to hope that all the rocky things out here would be. The Strand Super is also a suitable sword flying substitute for short bursts anyways. You can see that ship getting a bit closer. But we're almost out of ammo, so I'm going to swap to some grapple flying. I've been getting a little bit more comfortable with it. Perhaps I'll use it a bit more heavily in my next video. By the way, I found that if you turn the audio dialogue down to 0, the Guardian downs that you get when Guardians go down don't happen anymore, so I'll probably take advantage of that in future videos. Titan grapple flying is nice. I always like to keep my lion rampants on in case I want to sword fly out of it, but you could use an exotic for double grenades if you want. Been grapple flying for a while. It's getting pretty close. Well, I guess we can't make it all the way there, but you can get kinda close. Anyways, I hope you enjoy coming out this way yourself, and if you do, hopefully your hearing survives.